We're talking about practice. So I had recently got some, very nice emails from people asking me what my practice regimen was. I think sort of implying that it might be something that it's not. So I sort of mentioned that, I kind of explained what my way of doing things were. And then I thought, well, other people might be interested. And a few of you who may be seeing this, I kind of queried, and you said that you'd be interested. So let me sort of try to somewhat quickly go through this. I actually just made another video, and it was like 25 minutes. So I may use that one, and you'll never see this one, or I may use this one if I can keep it maybe closer to 10 to 15 minutes. So maybe I'll start with, what don't I do? And maybe I'll try to add some words and stuff. I don't know. What I don't do is I don't have some kind of plan. There's really no plan. I'm not very good at planning. I never really liked planning. I feels like plans always fall apart. So what I don't do is like 6 a.m. get up in the morning, practice scales for an hour. At 7 p.m. or whatever, 7 in the morning, now do an hour of chords and then an hour of this. And I don't do that. One, I don't really have the luxury of doing such a thing. And then two, I don't actually think it's particularly effective. I used to do something like that a long time ago, and it has some inherent problems to it. And you might say, well, what are some of the problems? I think it's much like anything. When you do too much of everything, you sort of get this like mid-tier thing. You never really get specialized or good at something because it's so broad. This is going to sound bad, and maybe I shouldn't go here, but it reminds me a little bit of like sort of the CrossFit approach, which is sort of that gun blast there, where you're always working on all kinds of different stuff, and it's always different. And what ends up happening is you get much fitter kind of quick. And this is probably true of that like 9-hour regimen thing too. But then you hit some kind of wall. You never really great at anything. You sort of get here, and then you really slow down a lot. And I'm saying this from experience too. If you want to get good at bench press, then you have to work on bench press. If you only do bench press once every 3 months because that's when it comes up in CrossFit, the overall strength is not going to let you ever get specialized in that thing. So a lot of what I'm going to talk about here really has to do with that. And I'm looking over here because I have some notes. So what are the big things? I'll tell you, one is consistency. And I know I just said don't have this regimen thing, and I'm going to explain what I mean by consistency. It's that you just have to work on it all the time. I was telling my 10-year-old daughter that, it's kind of cool that some people were asking me this week about how I practice. And she's like, yeah, just tell them you practice all the time. And while that's not quite as accurate or maybe as luxurious as it sounds, is that what my daughter sees is that when I have an opportunity to sit down, I'm working on stuff. Recently, I did this Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer arrangement. And what my kids saw was, for like 2 weeks, all I did was practice that thing over and over again. Anytime I got a chance to sit down, and they saw the kind of work it took. So that's what she sees. And I also want to say that I feel like I was never like the quick learner when it came to music. There was a lot of people I knew, in high school or whatever, that seemed much further ahead than me. And guitar is kind of a weird one, but even like other instruments and stuff, and I saw, profoundly in front of where I'm at or where I was at. And I think at some point, just my like relentlessness of consistently always working on music and never stopping, it got me to the point where I passed them by quite a bit, probably. And I feel weird even saying that because I think I stink, So that's part of it too, maybe. But just meaning like I could see where they seemed like they were getting ahead of me, and the only thing that I really had over them is just a consistent, just relentlessness to always work on it. Another thing that I learned, and this is really has to do with, you need to have very focused practice. And what do I mean by that? Well, like I was saying, when I worked on that Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer thing, that's all I worked on. I didn't try to practice chords or scales or improvisation or anything else. For me, I don't have the capacity to take that on at the same time. I had to pick something and just focus on it. And that's really important for me. If I try to do too much, if I try to say I'm going to do an hour of scales and an hour of this is a huge problem. I think it's almost ineffective. You just can't seem to process that much information to make great strides. Again, maybe that first hump, maybe if you're just getting going, there's some value in that. But you really want to learn the A flat major scale or something, you got to spend time just doing that. And that's how my schedule has been really for a long time now. It's always picking one thing. Prior to the Rudolph thing, I spent about a month only working on vibrato and bending and stuff like that. Any kind of like, taking the string and, bending it in some way and those kind of motions, because I didn't have the capacity to take that on and try to work on legato and try to work on this other stuff. I just had to focus on that. So when my kid was telling me about how I practice during the month before the Rudolph thing, she'd see me picking up the guitar and just playing vibrato, and there's like 7 different types of vibrato I'd work on. And it was really always about that. I had to make it very focused. So pick on a subject like that, and then pick on weaknesses. You have to work on weaknesses. You can't just keep doing stuff that you are good at. To me, I start working on stuff because it drives me crazy how bad I am at it. That's what I see anyway. So when I was working on vibrato, I was like listening to the stuff I'm doing, and I'm like, God, the vibrato is terrible, and I need to work on it, and I've sort of been putting it off too, because it always makes me cringe so much, and just the thought of like, well, how do I even take this on? And really, I learned a lot from doing that. So you have to take on weaknesses, and in fact, I know what the next thing is. It's the thing that's annoying me the most right now is the thing that I'm now starting to work on for this next round of focused practice, and it's what I intend to work on for the next month, and that's really going to be the primary focus of everything I'm doing. And then, you might say, well, I can never find the time. So this is, I'm going to call this the finding time myth. And really what that is I understand. I have 2 young children, a wife. I have a job that I work sometimes 50, 60 hours a weekend. And here I am trying to, find time for practice. Something that it seems almost impossible. So I understand what it's like to be busy. But something that I learned a long time ago when I was in music school, one of the teachers I had, I would tell him how I never, how do I come up with a practice regimen? I asked the same question that I was getting asked. How do I do this? Because I can't find time. I only have an hour here and I have an hour here. I can't get that consistent 8 hours in a row where I'm working on something. And he was like, well, just, do you have 15 minutes in between class? And I said, yeah. He's like, well, go and practice that thing. Because at the time we were working on a piece where I couldn't get through this part. I always got stuck and the timing got weird or something. And he's like, just for that 15 minutes, only focus on that one thing, And then, so I tried that, and I found that just by like cutting out all the other noise of trying to do everything else, I just focused on for 15 like really focused minutes, worked on that one. It was literally one bar. It was like 10 notes, not even 5 notes that are just in a weird sort of shape or something, and just worked on that, and I got it. And then it was second nature after that because it was very focused. And the other thing is, I could have just continued to do the thing I was doing, which I thought I was practicing a lot, but it was so all over the place and never focused that I didn't make any progress, or made limited progress. It wasn't until I took even just 15 minutes and did that. And it's kind of like, with my kids too, they see me practice all the time just because I have guitars everywhere, and I'll pick them up and, cooking lunch or dinner or something, and then I get 2 minutes in between stirring, and I'll practice vibrato for 2 minutes, that whatever the subject at hand is. And also the focus practice thing is, I want to talk about, you need to make your own little lessons. It's sort of a pet peeve of mine, but a lot of times people ask, well, how do I do this? Or how do I do that? And tell me exactly how to practice this or practice that. To me, it's extremely important that you have to come up with your own exercises. You write them down. When you get an idea, like, well, I want to be able to do this. So you got to come up with strategies for how you could do this. And that sort of goes into my next point, which is you have to do really specialized training and not fall into the technical rabbit hole. And what do I mean by that? Well, just practicing vibrato by itself means nothing in music. In music, to make music, you need to play music. So what I was working on was, copying Al Green and Jeff Buckley, and, learning how to do these different vibratos, Jeff Beck and Prince or whoever, somebody that I liked the sound of what they were doing, and trying to mimic that, like learning the language of it and in a musical way. Like I'm hearing it in a song in context. It's not me going, I'm going to practice vibrato at 60 beats per minute and moving my hand and trying to learn how to do it that way. It's not just like random technical stuff. And I could tell you from experience of doing a lot of technical stuff like that before, that it's just really a fool's errand. I think you end up spending so much more time then learning how to play music, because what you just practiced for 8 hours was just a technical exercise that doesn't sound good at all. It's not useful. So it's really learning it in context. That might be in a song, that might be mimicking other instruments or your own instrument or whatever it is, but try to do it that way and not just random technical exercises. And then that brings me to my last point, which is thinking, the difference between long-term and short-term thinking. I tend to not be a very detail-oriented type speaker in anything that I do, from engineering, my day job, and music. I'm very like big picture oriented. So this might be geared towards this a little bit, but for me, there's sort of the short-term goals of what you want to get at, and then there's that long-term thing you're shooting for. So one example for me, on guitar, a lot of people think in shapes and patterns, and I've just never really liked that approach. It doesn't translate well to other instruments, and it ends up being a very guitar-centric sort of way of thinking, where I get into music, I just like it all, from different instruments and stuff like that, and I want to be able to hear things and play them just because of what they are, regardless of the instrument. And so for me, it's about translating it all to notes. So when I see a guitar, I don't think of like cage shapes or 3 notes per string or any of that stuff. I just see all the notes that I want. If I want to play an A, then I just play an A. It doesn't matter which position I'm in or shapes or anything like that. I don't think like that. This is not to say this is how you should do it, but to make a point that about 15 years ago, I decided that that's how I needed to learn. That's how I wanted to see the guitar. It was like this vision of, oh man, one day I hope I can do this. So I had to start these little waves, these little like motions because I'm taking these little focused practices, and the goal of each one of those is to get to that long-term goal that I knew was 10 years away, at least. And it really did take 10 years to get any good at doing that. Now I don't think about it, but it was a conscious effort of initiating these little things that you have these very focused practices, but all towards a common goal. And I think that's a really powerful thing to do. You got to think, how do I start that? And I think about this not only with music, but every aspect of your life. It's if you want to influence yourself or other people, all these kind of things, you start with these little waves. You kind of nudge them in this direction, nudge them in that direction, so they all start pointing in one direction. So, just in summary real quick, this video is a little shorter than the last one, which was things I don't do. I don't have some kind of full planned out regimen. Consistency is a big deal. Number 2, just always working on it any time you get a chance. You just taking off months or whatever isn't very helpful. It's just always working on it. Even if you don't have a guitar around, I'm writing little notes. I'm sending myself plans, or not plans, but exercises that I could work on, or sending myself music to check out, to learn something from. Very focused. Work on one thing, whatever it is. Just try to focus on it and really get it down. You'd be amazed just doing that focus thing. You just start really checking things off the list. I need to work on this. Well, just work on it. Don't work on anything else. Just do that until it becomes second nature. Find time. You find time by making it easy to get to. Don't put your guitar away every time and lock it up in the closet. So just keep it out. I used to tell that when I used to teach a lot. I'd say, don't put your guitar in your case. Just leave it out. Put it on your bed. Put it on your chair or whatever. So that way, when you wake up in the morning, it's just sitting there. And in my house, I have guitars all over the place. And it's just, that's when I get a second, I pick it up and I work on the thing that I'm working on. And then, specialized learning in music, or if you're in music, then work on playing music. Learn how to play music. If you're in art and you want to draw, then learn how to draw from real drawings, or real pictures. It doesn't do you much good to just practice drawing straight lines when anyone can go grab a roller and draw a straight line. You got to learn how to see, you got to learn how to hear, do things that make that thing. And then finally, long-term thinking. Make your short goals work, your short-term studies work towards that long-term goal. And then I think you might get there. So hopefully this was a little better. Actually, the last video had a lot of dogs barking too, so maybe this will work. I appreciate the time, and let me know what you think, and let's talk about it some more later.